Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're diving into a story that has Hollywood, politics, and the media world buzzing. Tom Hanks, once celebrated as America's most beloved actor, just found himself in the middle of a storm. One so big that NBC made the shocking decision to ban him from returning to Saturday Night Live. It all started after the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, when Hanks mocked and politicized the situation, and the backlash has been explosive. Now the question is, has Tom Hanks finally gone too far? Let's break it all down, because this controversy is only getting started. On September 10th, Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a disturbed individual. It was a tragic and horrifying event that shook his supporters and critics alike. But what followed was something that made the tragedy even more explosive: the reaction from Hollywood and the entertainment world. Instead of silence, respect, or even neutrality, many celebrities rushed to politicize Kirk's death. Some mocked him. Others tied his assassination to rants about Donald Trump, MAGA, and the state of America. One of the most prominent voices among them was Tom Hanks. Yes, that Tom Hanks, the man who for decades represented kindness, family films, and Hollywood respectability. Forrest Gump, Captain Phillips, the voice of Woody from Toy Story. The man America trusted, the actor who was often described as America's dad. But in 2025, that wholesome image began to crack. For the first time in his career, audiences weren't just watching his movies with admiration. They were questioning who Tom Hanks really was behind the curtain. In the months leading up to Charlie Kirk's death, Hanks had already been using platforms like Saturday Night Live to take repeated jabs at Trump supporters. Back in January, he appeared in sketches mocking conservatives, portraying them as ignorant, backwards, racist, and misogynistic. For SNL, this wasn't new territory. They had built years of political comedy around ridiculing Republicans and especially Donald Trump. But fans noticed something different. Hanks wasn't just delivering the lines, he seemed to relish it. So when Charlie Kirk was killed, instead of addressing the tragedy with respect or even silence, Hanks used the moment to double down. He openly tied Kirk's death to Trump, MAGA, and conservative America. For millions of Americans, that was the breaking point. By now, people were exhausted with celebrities dragging politics into every conversation, every sketch, every award speech. Viewers wanted escapism, entertainment, and laughter, but instead, they got lectures, finger-pointing, and mockery. And when Tom Hanks, the man they thought was different, the man they thought was above the partisan mud, jumped right into it, the backlash was immediate and brutal. And here's where things get even more dramatic. Behind the scenes, NBC executives, along with SNL creator Lorne Michaels, had big plans for Tom Hanks. He wasn't just another guest star. He was lined up for a 4-month run of appearances, each one portraying a different stereotype of a Trump supporter. The scripts were already written. The parodies included Hanks playing a drunk hillbilly getting pulled over by cops, a law-breaking redneck roaming the countryside, and several sketches painting conservatives as racist, misogynistic, and ignorant. The crown jewel was scheduled to air on November 22, 2025, during the holiday season, a major primetime episode that NBC was banking on for ratings. But those plans would soon collapse in spectacular fashion. But then came the Charlie Kirk fallout. Hanks's comments politicizing the tragedy lit a firestorm, and NBC panicked. In an emergency decision, the network canceled all of Hanks' scheduled appearances. Every single parody sketch he was slated to headline was scrapped, and just like that, the king of Hollywood comedy came crashing headfirst into a wall built by the very industry he had once ruled. Sources close to NBC say Tom Hanks was furious. His agent and manager reportedly confronted the network, warning that SNL was throwing away guaranteed ratings spikes by canceling his appearances. After all, Hanks wasn't just any guest star. He was one of SNL's most iconic hosts, responsible for some of the show's most memorable moments. But NBC stood firm. According to insiders, it wasn't just about politics, it was about optics. The network was under immense pressure. On one side, audiences were sick of non-stop political comedy. On the other, Hanks's comments about Kirk had created a toxic storm that NBC didn't want to be caught in. Instead of risking more backlash, NBC executives pulled the plug on the planned sketches and began rewriting them for other actors. But this decision only exposed a deeper hypocrisy. They weren't backing off political comedy altogether. They were simply cutting Tom Hanks out of it. In other words, the jokes would go on. just without the man who had suddenly become a liability. And that brings us to the heart of the debate. Was this really about Hanks's comments? Or was it about NBC trying to shield itself from public outrage? For years, Saturday Night Live has leaned heavily into political parody, but many argue the show's comedic brilliance died decades ago. The golden era of John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Eddie Murphy in the late 70s and early 80s has long been celebrated as its peak. By the time the 2000s rolled around, critics claimed the show was running out of steam. And by the 2010s, viewers complained it had become a one-trick pony. Endless anti-Trump jokes, week after week. So when Tom Hanks stepped into that formula and doubled down after Charlie Kirk's death, many viewers had simply had enough. It wasn't just conservatives turning away, it was average families, ordinary Americans who wanted to sit down on a Saturday night, laugh at absurd skits, and escape reality. Instead, they felt lectured, mocked, and insulted. For Tom Hanks, the consequences quickly spilled beyond SNL. His carefully cultivated image as America's dad, built over decades of wholesome roles and family films, was suddenly under fire. Social media lit up with criticism. Fans who once adored him declared they no longer trusted him. Some even vowed to boycott his future movies altogether. And it wasn't just Hanks feeling the heat. Other celebrities who mocked Charlie Kirk, like Stephen King, also faced backlash. But because Hanks had been so universally loved and respected, his fall from grace hit harder, cut deeper, and proved far more shocking than anyone expected. The truth is, when a man like Hanks politicizes a tragedy, it doesn't just sting, it shatters the illusion. Audiences no longer saw Forrest Gump or Captain Phillips. They saw another Hollywood elite using grief as a weapon. NBC's decision wasn't just reactive, it was strategic. By removing Hanks but keeping the political sketches, they tried to thread the needle. We'll still mock Trump supporters, but with someone else delivering the punchlines. But does that solve anything? Or does it only highlight the hypocrisy? Because at the end of the day, it wasn't the jokes that offended NBC. It was the fact that Hanks became a liability. That raises a bigger question. Is Hollywood comedy really about art and laughter anymore? Or is it just about pushing politics until it backfires? So where does this all lead? Some insiders believe this could mark the beginning of a major shift in late-night comedy and celebrity culture. Maybe networks will finally realize audiences are burned out on political satire. Maybe they'll move back toward variety, absurdity, and creativity that doesn't lean on one target over and over. Others say nothing will change. They believe NBC will simply swap Hanks for another actor, keep mocking Trump supporters, and continue the cycle until the next controversy erupts. But here's the key takeaway. For Tom Hanks, this isn't just another Hollywood speed bump. It's a turning point. The man who built a career on trust, relatability, and universal appeal is now caught in the same swamp of partisanship that Americans are desperate to escape. And that brings us to the end of today's deep dive. What do you think? Has Tom Hanks gone too far by politicizing Charlie Kirk's death? Did NBC make the right call in canceling his appearances? Or was this just another act of Hollywood hypocrisy? And maybe the bigger question, are you tired of politics and comedy altogether? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is one of those stories where your voice truly matters. And that's the story behind Tom Hanks, Charlie Kirk, and the storm that shook NBC and SNL. What do you think? Was this backlash deserved or pure Hollywood hypocrisy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more eye-opening stories right here on the channel. Thanks for watching.